kind of be ready to quit the internet by the time you are done reading it. Oh crap, how's the character gonna get out of this? It's fine, we'll just give them exactly what they need, exactly when they need it. I don't know, like, was she okay? Also, this may have been one of the worst things. Is this a weird angle? Hello friends, welcome back to another video. It is the May wrap up. I had 5, so not a crazy ton of books this month. I've been doing a lot of house things, if you saw the house vlog. Also this book, my freaking book, is almost done. Between buying a house and writing a fantasy book, my brain has been other places, but I'm still very pleased with most of the ones that I read this month. We had 2 on audio, so this is just my little stack. I only have 3 physical books. I'm hoping that once I get, settled in the house and I finish this book and I'm just kind of doing like house projects, I will have more relaxing time to read. I don't know. Or be able to get more like audiobook listening time in during projects and stuff. So anyway, you wanna say hi real quick? Can you say hi? Right there? Say hi? Or not? Okay. I always like to start off with the great at the top of the video just so you guys get the good recommendations up first. Oh, well first I normally start with DNFs. We didn't have any DNFs this month, thankfully. So we had a good start. First up was an audiobook that I was listening to. I was watching like a video essay on YouTube about beauty culture. A book that the YouTuber recommended was Pixel Flesh by Ellen Atlanta. How Toxic Beauty Culture Harms Women. It's actually narrated by the author and she does a very fabulous job. She has a wonderful English accent. I'm not sure like what type of British accent, but it was quite lovely listening to her. She was a journalist. She'd worked in and written for a beauty magazine and basically just started seeing problems in the industry and things that she couldn't reconcile. But she was seeing all these articles that they were writing, some that she was writing, contributing to herself, where they were recommending plastic surgery to like women, under the age of 18, like basically minors. She considers herself a feminist and she was like, I can't do this anymore. This is too toxic. And there was actually a ton of studies coming out now that we know that social media, particularly Instagram, is extremely harmful for young women, our self-confidence and our mental health. And so this book is really, really important. Even though it's nonfiction and it is full of facts, she does a really good job of sprinkling in like personal anecdotes, and it really gives the book a lot of heart. And she's very vulnerable, and she says it's one of the hardest things she's ever written. So she recounts in the prologue how she grew up on social media, and she says she learned to nitpick her appearance, and doing that just feeds this multi-billion-dollar beauty industry. It's one of those books that you have that, what's it called, like cognitive dissonance, or like doublethink happening in your brain all at the same time. So anyway, from chapter 1, she dives into Kylie Jenner, and that's where a lot of this stuff starts. I think it's called The Cult of Kylie. That's like what chapter 1 is called. And she talks about, the strange commodification of her youth, how she grew up on TV, and that's what fed into all these insecurities. And now she's come out saying she regrets all the plastic surgery. And, her whole makeup line was propped up on a lie, that she achieved this sort of big lip look because of using makeup. And now obviously we all know that it was obviously plastic surgery. So there's a lot in here about how women who bend to the male gaze only perpetuate the patriarchy, even if they're preaching feminism. That's one of those, sorry, ignore the cat. That's one of those really difficult like cognitive dissonance things to read in here. It's a 10-hour audiobook, and honestly, it went by pretty quickly because I was so absorbed. It's so much darker and more insidious than what we even know. And we already know it's bad, but like, it's even worse than what we think. Like, you will kind of be ready to quit the internet by the time you are done reading it. There's just, it's an intense read. It's really dark at times. She goes into some very mature topics. OnlyFans, that's like a whole chapter. Deep fake corn. Revenge corn, if you know what I mean. Pregnancy, abortion, body dysphoria, assault. Like, it can actually be really disgusting to read at times. I would say the silver lining in the book, I have this here in my notes, Even though it was tough to read at times, the silver lining is that knowing society is set up in a way to make women feel less than, so that we will keep paying for the treatments, the makeup, the clothes, etc. to feel pretty and whole and adequate enough to exist in public. That doesn't sound like a silver lining at all. That sounds really toxic and gross. The silver lining is like being aware of that. Like if you know that, you're not maybe as likely to become a victim of that, if that makes any sense. And then she does kind of suggest some things at the end. I'm not going to suggest women delete social media and log off the internet because that would have a hugely detrimental impact on our democracy and social lives. But I do think it's important to identify the forces working against us and acknowledge that these platforms do not have our best interests at heart. We have to negotiate that and come to the table with an awareness of the bargain we are making. And I think that's such a good point. Like she's saying, you don't have to completely disappear from the internet, but you need to be aware that, if you're following a ton of celebrities, if you're seeing yourself getting all these ads for like the next viral beauty thing and, all these things, really check in with yourself and make sure how, it's not impacting you negatively, because if it is, might be time to take a little bit of a break. So that was Pixel Flesh. So now moving on to something that's a little bit more highbrow and literary. We have one that the book club that I'm a part of is reading, shortlisted for the Booker. It's been out for a couple of years. I don't know why, but something about the cover made me think this was like an older book. I chose to pick it up because it's for Sri Lanka, for my Reading Around the World challenge, and that is A Passage North by Anouk Arunpragasam. Probably saying that wrong. This was really good, hence why it's in the good category. It wasn't great for me simply because of the writing style, and I will get into that right now. It's quite a short book. I do recommend it. I've got, a decent amount of tabs. I didn't go as crazy as I would have if I had enjoyed it a little bit more. It's the story of a young man named Christian as he travels by train, like cross country, to a funeral. His grandmother's caretaker has recently passed, and so it's literally just him in the train the whole time pretty much, and a lot of it is flashback. And so that is one of the main reasons why I not struggled with it, but just didn't super enjoy it. I quickly realized that it wasn't gonna be like a super favorite, just because it's a little bit more stream of consciousness than what I kind of like. It really kind of felt like watching a film, which isn't a bad thing, but it felt like watching a film. Like he would describe something that was happening in the train and kind of look out the train window at the landscape passing by, and then he would like you do on a train ride or a road trip or something like that, tend to end up going back in your mind and kind of reminiscing because there's just kind of nothing for you to do on the train. So it takes away that kind of like punch of the narrative and the immediacy, because we're kind of in a memory and it feels a little bit floaty. I would say it is about like 80% interiority, where we are just getting a scene from the past or his rambling thoughts. It almost feels like he's an overthinker, or maybe like he has ADHD or something, and that's a lot when you're already an overthinker and you already have that sort of like, a million tabs open in your brain all the time. When you already have that kind of brain, it's tricky to read. The author has a degree in philosophy, and once I flipped to the back and saw that, because it mentions it briefly on his little like about the author page in the back, I was like, okay, I got you. It all makes sense now. I did find myself skimming certain bits, especially when he would get into like, describing like a girl that he was watching from across the room at a concert, and watching and waiting for her to look at him. And it's very realistic. Like it really does capture thought, like human thought and consciousness really well. But again, it just wasn't the most entertaining style to read. I will say he does really drop some genius lines in here. Like some of the lines really do describe a feeling or an emotion that you've probably felt before, but you maybe didn't quite have words to explain. He's really good about capturing those hyper specific emotions in words. So you might really like it for that reason as well. I just wish he had been a bit less philosophizing and more to the point. And it had been like a little bit punchier in terms of plot. I would have really liked it a lot more. That was A Passage North. Next up was another audio, and this is one that you have heard of. You've heard people talk about it. My notes are actually quite short. That is Orbital by Samantha Harvey. Listen to this one on audio as well. And I do recommend, it really fits the audio format perfectly because it is very description heavy, not a lot of plot. And I knew that going into it from the 1,000,001 reviews that I have read. So going into it knowing there wasn't really going to be a heavy plot made it a lot more enjoyable for me. It probably would have maybe knocked down a tier into the okay category if I hadn't known that. It is all about the psychological and sometimes physical aspect of what it means to be floating in a spacecraft, orbiting the Earth with no real tether to your family besides email. So it's about a group, I don't even remember how many there were, how many astronauts in a space station. And so that's, just what life is like. It's very slice of life, day to day. You can tell the author really delights in these rich descriptions. And I've heard this from other reviewers, the amount of time she probably spent on Google Earth, like looking at, Earth as a globe as a whole and kind of zooming in and finding all these beautiful metaphors to describe the landscape. You can tell that she enjoyed herself doing that. It comes through really strongly in the prose. It really does sparkle. But she does character really well too. So there is a good balance of like character and description. There's just not a lot of plot happening because it's just they're basically trapped in this, lunar module. I really did like the listening aspect. I might have put it down. I don't know if I would have fully DNF'd, but I don't think I would have been able to kind of rip through it like I did. So nice in the car, on your way to work, school, whatever, to just let those descriptions kind of wash over you. So it was a really easy listen. It's really easy to get kind of like caught up in it, and it does put you in this really enjoyable kind of headspace. Her awe and her appreciation for the beauty of Earth and nature is really palpable. That's kind of the thing that comes to mind when I think of the book, is just the beauty of Earth. And I think she uses those descriptions as kind of a vehicle to sort of guide the dialogue between the astronauts towards these bigger topics about space and life and God and all of these like bigger, heavier topics. And it kind of does leave you with this sense of like how small we are, but also how miraculous life is. One of those sort of dichotomous kind of feelings where it's like, we're so small and we're so tiny and we're so minuscule and what does anything matter? But then also like life is a miracle and it's amazing to just be breathing. In the okay category, we have a couple of things. One in particular, I was very disappointed by. I have had this book on pre-order since January because one of the authors, Aaliyah Whiteley, is one of my favorite authors. I don't know if it's gonna be in frame. These ones right here, kind of on the side. She does body horror like no other. I haven't read every body horror book in the world, but it's so good. She does such a good job. And so when I saw her name on this book, it's actually a co-authored book with Oliver K. Langmead. I don't know anything about him. I got very excited and the premise sounds really cool. And then it just wasn't my favorite. This is City of All Seasons. It just came out in April. This conceptually knocks it out of the park. And then I felt like, I don't know if it's because it was sort of a new kind of genre for her. So it's set in the fictional town of Fair Harbor. Part of the town is set in a perpetual winter and part of the town is set in perpetual summer. So it's this sort of, city split into, there was some sort of weather bomb that went off some time ago in the past, and that's what caused the sort of split in the city. But here's the deal about, the world building and all the things that we kind of need in the beginning to like fully understand what's going on. I still don't know if it's like an alternative, like it's the same town, but different universe, like multiverse type situation, or it's literally like half of the town. Like it was physically split in two. I still don't know. And through the use of a kaleidoscope, of all things, just like a little kaleidoscope that you look through, they are able to see the other town through the kaleidoscope. So that's the first like object where they realize they're able to communicate. And previously they didn't know, it's dual POV by the way, I don't think I said. We have Jamie in winter and Esther in summer, and they are cousins. They did not know if either one of them, you know, if their family was like alive or dead. They don't know. It's like 60 pages in before that even happens. There's a lot of nonsense at the beginning that doesn't really feel, it's not total nonsense, like some of it comes into play later, but there's so much in here of the other family members, like older family members, some of which who are still alive, some of which who have passed. One of which who was murdered, but it's not like a murder mystery necessarily. It's like they tried to do that, but they didn't really, because that's not the vibe at all. And there's so much time that we spend in the lives of those older people, like the older family members, like the uncles and stuff, that we pull so far away from Jamie and Esther that I felt like I didn't know them and I wasn't able to connect with either of them. Also, this was something that I kind of realized after the fact as I was going through other people's reviews of this. You can't really distinguish between either of the voices. The only way that I was able to tell who was who is because they have the name, like the literal name of the character at the top of the chapter. And I feel like if you're gonna go dual POV or multiple POV, you have to have such distinct character voices. And to me, that's a sign of weak writing, which I feel bad saying because I freaking love Aaliyah Whiteley's work, but this one was it was a big miss for me. And there are some really cool like world building elements I was like very intrigued by. There's a government type group called the Fenestration, and they go around like busting windows into things. And it's supposed to be for a particular reason, but I can't remember why. It was like a silly reason. I think they tried to kind of marry magical realism with science fiction. It feels a little steampunky at times, but the writing just really wasn't anything special. It was very basic. I just kind of early on felt this weird sense of like reading like a middle grade book. I think something about the kaleidoscope being the object that was connecting them, and then there are other objects that come into play later. There was something about that felt very juvenile. Also, this may have been one of the worst things. Like the whole concept, the like literary concept of Deus Ex Machina, which is like where some sort of angel or some sort of miracle happens, an angel comes down, or some sort of godlike creature will like intervene and save the day, like save the characters out of an impossible situation. They literally have a very convenient thing happen at the end to wrap up things nicely. It's almost like they realize like, oh crap, how's the character gonna get out of this? It's fine, we'll just give them exactly what they need, exactly when they need it. The line literally says, a character literally says, after they find the thing, we miraculously found it right when we needed it. And like, no. To wrap it up, you just like gave the character exactly what they needed right when they needed it is the most boring. It's like something an amateur writer would do, but these are published authors. I was looking on Goodreads and Storygraph. The only reason why this book gets a high rating, like a 4 or a 5 rating, was, and this was sort of the common denominator in all the reviews, the high rating was accounted to or attributed to atmosphere. Like, are we coming to a point in the publishing world where you can survive solely on vibes and atmosphere? Because it doesn't do it for me. So that was City of All Seasons. Now that my rant is done, we can talk about this last book. We're still in the okay category. And the last one that I'm going to share with you is for Costa Rica for my Reading Around the World challenge, and that is Monkeys Are Made of Chocolate. This one was fun, but obviously just okay. It's a book about a man with a degree in biology who had the opportunity back in the 70s to relocate his entire family to this plot of land in Costa Rica with the hopes to reforest it. This came out in 2005, but he's mainly talking about like the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. So over the next 20 years, he lets the land grow wild, lets everything kind of revitalize naturally, and he begins an ecotourism business where people can come to the refuge, and each essay is a chapter, and they're quite short, like they're only like a couple of pages each, and they were originally published in like some of the local Costa Rican newspapers. So this book is all of those articles collected into one book. And then each chapter focuses on a different animal. I like that he's sort of like giving them a voice and trying to help the reader connect with them emotionally, because obviously a lot of times people struggle to connect with animals that aren't like cats and dogs. It really does feel like the book version of a National Geographic special on Costa Rica. So if you're planning to go there or you just like the rainforest, it really is fun to read. There was a lot of like, you know, kind of fun random facts packed in here. The reason why it is in the okay category is because it was just kind of missing that secret sauce. I was really hoping, and it doesn't necessarily make the promise on the back, but I was hoping that it was going to be a little bit more kind of memoir heavy, like something like Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, where you have the author really being quite vulnerable and sharing, you know, personal anecdotes and different stories. And so you get this really beautiful marriage of nature writing, but also the humanity of it all. And he does not get into his personal life at all, which is totally fine. That's just not what the book is. But because of that, it's really missing this very important human element. And so it kind of rings hollow. It really could have packed so much more of an emotional punch if he had, you know, kind of been a little bit more vulnerable. But I also understand not wanting to write about your own life. What's interesting, and there were a few random little things like this that came up in the very beginning, like in the prologue, I think, he mentions how, in the preface, so there's a brief preface before chapter 1, he talks about how, you know, the process of like literally moving your entire family from Colorado, I think is where they were, to Costa Rica. And he says, the kids thrived and my wife survived. And I was like, okay, maybe it's just like a haha funny comment. But I kind of like, I wanted to hear from the wife. Like, was she okay? Like, I assume she was down for this too, because obviously that's a big move and you would hope that like they had obviously consulted one another, I assume, before they did all this. But it was just an interesting little tiny little brief little comment. So she's just surviving. She's not thriving either. So like stuff like that was kind of weird, and it made me really wish that he had gone deeper into how a move like that, like it's a completely different way of life. He even talks about there's like bat shit coming down, like guano coming down from like the ceiling at one point in time, and the only thing that gets rid of the bats is they realize there's a giant boa constrictor in the house somewhere that's eating the bats. Like, I don't know, like, was she okay? I really, really, really want a book from the wife's perspective now. That's all I want. And so because there was that lack of like personhood and humanity to it, it kind of felt a little bit more like just a series of observations. His ultimate goal is like to spur us, the reader, on to do something and to help and to donate and, you know, to educate us. And a lot of the chapters end with him telling the reader like, you can learn more here, and then he'll literally put a URL at the end of the chapter. But anyway, that's one more down for my Reading Around the World challenge. And that, my friends, was everything. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your favorite read of May was, particularly if it's an international book, like if it's from, you know, it was originally published in another language or another country, because I'm always looking for recommendations for my Reading Around the World challenge. And I will keep you updated on house stuff, on book stuff. If you guys want to subscribe and follow along, I've got a couple of different life things happening. So I will see you in my next video.